My name is Jessie Jennings, and I'm a content creator here at Plaid, and welcome to Let's Paint Live, our monthly paint night party, where we teach you to paint a full painting in just about an hour. So tonight we're going to be painting this super fun, super simple, summery white water lily. So I'm really excited to show you how to do this. It's nice and loose, and it's going to be a really fun and quick one. Tonight we're live in the studio, so we have Emma Panuski here as well, answering your questions in the comments. So if you have any questions about the painting, if you're painting along, let us know. Just say hello, let us know where you're painting from. We'd love to hear from you, and Emma will answer your questions and relay them to me live. So hey, Emma.
Hey, Jessie, excited to follow along tonight.
Yeah, I'm excited too. So without further ado, I'll let you guys know what supplies we'll be using for this painting. So as you can see here, I have a 10 by 10 canvas. So really any size canvas will work for this. Whatever you have on hand is great. A bigger canvas, a smaller canvas. Even if you have a rectangular, I would recommend doing it horizontally. And you may just want to add some more flowers than what we have here in our original. But really, this is really adaptable for whatever you have on hand. I also have some wax-coated palette paper that I'll be using to mix my paints on. I've got some paper towels and a water basin for cleaning my brushes. And the brushes I'll be using tonight, these are all from our 10-piece folk art variety brush set. So this is my favorite brush set to use. It is actually a part of our Let's Paint Live kit. So if you have the kit at home, it's a really awesome kit. If you haven't heard about it, you can get it on plaidonline.com. It comes with great brushes. It comes with 24 colors. And the best part is you can use those colors to paint any of our Let's Paint Live paintings. So I really recommend checking that out if you're going to be painting along with us with these paintings, or going back and painting the older ones. So anyway, the brushes from the pack I'll be using are my 3/4 inch flat brush, a 1/2 inch flat, I've got a number 8 flat, and then I've also got my number 6 round. So these are the brushes we'll be using tonight, but if you don't have these exact brushes, don't stress about it. Anything that looks similar to this will be fine. And then of course we're using our favorite paints tonight, our folk art acrylic paints. So like I said, all of these paints are included in the Let's Paint Live kit. So if you have that at home, you are all ready to go for this painting. And if not, feel free to substitute any colors in if you prefer a different color background, or maybe you wanted pink flowers or something like that. Feel free to go ahead and do that just as you'd like. So the colors we have are daffodil yellow, wicker white, lime green, true blue, classic green, Dutch aqua, and then we also have just our regular aqua color, which is one of my favorites. Okay, Emma, anybody saying hello in the chat? Any questions yet?
No, people are just introducing themselves, saying where they're from, saying they're excited to be here tonight. We're excited to have everyone watching with us.
Awesome, cool. Okay, so we can go ahead and get started. So we will start with our background. I'm going to grab some of my Dutch aqua, a little bit of that on my palette, and then when we're finished with our background, we're going to go ahead and use the hair dryer to dry it. So I'm going to put a little bit of my true blue as well. And I'm going to pick up my 3/4 inch flat brush, and I'm going to grab some of my Dutch aqua, just a little bit on my brush. You can see not a ton of paint. You never want to overload your brush, just because it makes it harder to control the way the paint goes onto the canvas. So I'm going to start at the top left, and I'm going to do really quick and random brush strokes going in every which way direction. So you can see here I'm going left and right and up and down. I'm kind of slip-slapping my brush along the canvas. I'm going I'll do about the top half with this color. And then as you can see in our final painting, we'll start blending it into our darker blue. So you don't need a ton of paint for this, guys. Make sure you don't overpaint it. And the reason you want to do that is because folk art acrylic paints really have awesome coverage. So it does not take much paint to cover the whole canvas. We really will only need to do 1 coat. We won't need to do 2 coats. And of course you don't want to waste your paint, but really you don't want to use more paint than you need, because it could sometimes cause cracking if it dries too quickly, and it'll just take way longer to dry. So of course you always try to finish our paintings in just about an hour, so you really just need just enough paint to cover the canvas, which really is not much.
And Jessie, we do have a question from Sherry.
Okay.
Sherry wants to know, what can I sub for Dutch aqua if you don't have any at home?
Oh, great question. So you can grab some of your regular aqua, and mostly white. So like I said, I'll do mostly wicker white and then maybe a touch of our regular aqua, and you'll get a really similar light aqua color.
Great, thanks.
Great question. So I'm gonna go, you can see I'm almost halfway down. So I'll stop there. And if you find that your paint is kind of dragging on your canvas, if you're in a dry area or you have a fan on or something, you can dunk your brush in just a little bit of water. You don't want to completely saturate your brush, just enough to kind of moisten your brush to just keep it flowing across the canvas. You don't want to put too much water on it because we don't want to dilute the paint and mess with the coverage, just enough to kind of keep your brush flowing. Okay, so I'm not going to clean my brush off. I still have my Dutch Aqua in my brush. I'm going to pick up some of my True Blue, and I'm going to start right where I left off and keep doing the exact same thing going down. So I'm switching to True Blue, and we don't need to necessarily blend it right away. We'll go back up and do some more blending. And I'm just slip slapping in every which direction.
I love that term, Jessie, slip slapping. It's like the best way to describe what you're doing. I totally know what you mean.
Oh, awesome. Well, I'm glad. I make up a lot of painting terms. Yeah. So if you've painted with me before, I'm sure you're aware of that. But I just try to do my best to communicate what I'm doing to you guys at home. Sometimes there's not really a technical term for it. Sometimes there probably is and I just don't know it, but I think a lot of times there's not.
Yeah.
So I'm going to finish this all the way down to the bottom. Feel free to put more paint on your palette if you need to. I'm going to grab some more. Again, I'm using True Blue and Dutch Aqua. These colors look really nice together. Okay. So we're right down at the bottom now. So now we're going to go back up and we're going to start blending it a little bit with our Dutch Aqua. So since, of course, True Blue is much darker than our Dutch Aqua, I am going to wipe my brush off. I'm not going to rinse it off just yet, but I do want to try to get most of that just really powerful blue color out so I don't overpower when I try to blend in some more of this aqua, the Dutch Aqua color. So I'll pick up some Dutch Aqua and I'm going to start kind of here in the middle. Pick up more as you go. You can see here this True Blue is a really vibrant color and it's really going to want to overpower the Dutch Aqua. So you kind of have to keep picking up some of that nice light aqua color and just keep blending that in the middle, in between. And I'm going to go a little bit lower in the center, so it kind of has sort of a V shape almost. You can see here it's kind of just goes up like that. Looks like there's like a pretty light radiating down, maybe like it's on water or something like that. So I'm going to go kind of lower in the middle. And again, I have a lot of paint in my brush and it's really starting to mix, so I'm going to continue just wiping off excess paint as I'm blending this. So now we can pick up a little bit of the blue and soften the edge of where we're blending a little bit. We want to just make it a little bit less drastic of a change in color. Where's everybody painting from, Anne?
We have Liz from New Jersey. Sorry, it's hard to scroll. Kristen from Dallas. We have Patrice in Isle of Palms. Mary in Dallas as well, Dallas, Georgia. Lori in San Diego. We have people from all over the United States, at least, painting along with us
Awesome.
tonight.
I'm so happy that you guys are all here.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to pick up some more of my Dutch Aqua and I'm going to keep doing the same thing towards the top. And again, you see that True Blue really wants to travel up because it's a super, super powerful pigmented color, which is a great thing, but we do want to kind of tone that down with our Dutch Aqua a little bit. Oops. And you can see here we've got some of that True Blue really going up into the top, so it's okay if it travels up a little bit. And again, if you feel like your brush is just dragging, feel free to pick up just a tiny bit of water. You don't want to pick up too much water, just a little bit.
I love the texture you're creating there, Jess. That's a really cool technique.
Thanks. It's a really, really easy way to create a really interesting background for a painting. You can do lots of different, colorways with this too to make it really interesting. You can just do one color and kind of do a gradient with it, with white even, or you can do two different colors and blend them in the center. You can just get a lot of really interesting looks with this super duper easy technique. you can kind of blend it as much or as little as you want, guys. You can make it super blended, or you can have it a little choppier if you want a little bit more, detail and texture going on in the background. It's kind of up to you how far you want to take it with the blending. So I'm going to keep blending just a little bit more so it's a little bit softer of a texture, and then we can go ahead and dry it and move on to our flowers.
So Kathy has an interesting question. Kathy says, I struggle for ideas on what to paint on my own. What was your inspiration for this painting?
That's a great question. So I always like to look, at nature and things like that, of course. I love to be inspired by other works of art and things like that. So I saw a photograph, I think, I don't even know where I was looking, online or something like that, or in a magazine, and I saw this color palette, and I just really loved it. These white flowers on like an aqua blue, and I just loved it. So I just kind of painted these loose flowers to kind of match it, just because that's often how I start my paintings, is with a really interesting color palette, and then I kind of see, what can I paint to go with that color palette, if that makes sense. What kind of flowers could I paint that would be white and can match that beautiful blue, or what kind of, flower could I paint on that background of that color that I really just want to have in my painting.
Yeah.
So I kind of started with the colors for this one.
That's super interesting. I love that a color palette kind of inspired you for this painting tonight.
Yeah, definitely. I'm always looking for, interesting ways to paint different things. Unexpected ways to paint common things, if that makes sense.
Dee says, it looks like mountains.
Oh yeah, I can totally see that.
Yeah.
And this could easily turn into a mountain painting if you wanted to do something like that with this technique instead. I mean, that would be really beautiful. Okay, so you can kind of work this over and over and over forever. So at a certain point, you kind of need to call it quits. So I think I'm gonna do a few more brush strokes, blend it just a little bit more, and then I'm gonna do just that. Okay, all right, so I'm gonna leave it there. So I'm gonna go ahead and rinse my brush off. And I'm gonna grab my hairdryer. I'm gonna start drying my painting. And whenever I use a hairdryer in my paintings, I always get asked this question, so I'll just go ahead and let you guys know. I go on the highest air setting just because it works more quickly, and I'll start on hot, and then I'll switch over to the cool mode on the hairdryer and cool my painting down and kind of go back and forth. The key is I just don't want to get my painting too hot, because if you try to dry acrylic paint too quickly, that's when you may end up getting cracking. That's just the way acrylic paint is. You don't want to rush it. So we want to do nice cool air, warm it up, cool, and kind of go back and forth. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do that now. Touch, guys, so I think it's okay. We're going to go ahead and continue painting on top of that. I should make sure my brush is nice and rinse. I don't want to leave any paint in there. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab my 1/2 inch flat. If you have like a number 8 flat, that works too. I'm going to set it down. I'm going to grab some of my wicker white. So wicker white is just a nice warm white color. If you have titanium white, that works too. It's a little bit cooler, but really whatever white you have will be fine. And I'm going to grab, like I said, my 1/2 inch flat, and I'm going to start by marking where I want my flowers to be on my canvas. So, of course, you want to try to get an interesting composition. And in case you're wondering, composition just means really the layout of your painting. So just where the shapes and the lines are on your painting, and just make sure it's really interesting. So whenever I'm planning a composition, I always kind of try to make sure that I don't have anything too centered, or I don't have anything too evenly spaced out. I kind of try to make it a little more random, and that just makes it look a little bit more realistic too. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a little bit of paint on my brush. You can see I hardly have any paint here, just a tiny bit. And we're just going to do little dabs, yeah, you wipe some off, where I want our flowers to be so we can kind of get a nice general layout. So I'm going to try to follow my original composition. So we've got one up here towards the top left, just a little dot, another one here, and one below it, and a tiny guy there, and we've got one up here, and then one there as well. So again, feel free to make your composition however you want it. You could do more flowers or less flowers or larger flowers. It is totally up to you. This painting is really easy to customize. But this is where I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start laying out my flowers. So again, I've got my 1/2 inch flat and my wicker white, and I'm going to put a little more paint on my brush because we're going to start painting the actual flower petals.
And Jessie, Lisa's checking in, wants to know, she's just tuning in, wants to know what size canvas are we painting on tonight?
Oh yeah, no problem. This is a 10 by 10 canvas. So you can use a stretched canvas, or you can use the plaid wood panel, which is an awesome surface. That's probably one of my favorite surfaces to paint on. But yeah, this one's 10 by 10. Okay, so I'm going to start left to right. And the reason I'm going to go left to right is because I'm right-handed, so that way I'm not dragging my hand through any wet paint. So it's kind of like writing, it's just the same way. If you're left-handed, you may want to start right to left, totally up to you. So I'm going to start by painting this flower up here. And I'm going to paint the back petals first, and then I'm going to come closer to me to paint the petals closer to me. So the back petals will be in the background, of course, and then on top of that we'll layer the petals that will appear to be closer to us. So I'm going to paint a little curve there. That's going to be my back petal. And then I'm going to paint petals like this in the other direction, going towards me. And then I'm going to get a little bit bigger to create that flower shape, and a little bit bigger. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense to you guys. We'll kind of do a few of them, and we're going to go back and add a couple more colors too, but we're going to start with just this nice white base. So we'll do it again on this one. I'm going to do a C shape, or kind of like a rainbow shape, right on my space where we marked, and then one overlapping that one. It's going to be in the opposite direction, though, like a smiley face, and then a larger one overlapping that one beneath it, another smiley face.
It kind of reminds me of like making a rose with icing.
Yeah, it does. These flowers are really similar to roses. I'm going to continue doing that. My rainbow there, and the smiley face, and then a larger one beneath that. And don't forget, we're going to go back and add some more to these flowers too. This is just our sort of our base. Okay, so I'm going to wipe my brush up. I'm not going to rinse it or anything. I'm just going to wipe it off. And I'm going to put a little bit of aqua onto my palette. I'm just going to put a little bit of aqua on my brush, and I'm going to show you how little I mean. Can you guys see that corner where that aqua is? You can barely see it. I hardly have any. We're just going to tint the white in. Tint the white with the aqua ever so slightly. So I'm going to pick up some white with the other side, and we're just going to mix those together and get a really pale, pale, pale. It's just kind of like a bluish tinted white color. And with that color, we're going to go back over some of our petals just to add a little bit of interest. So whenever you have, multiple colors in a painting, which, typically you do, you want to make sure that wherever you have a color in your painting, you have it somewhere else in your painting as well. The reason you want to do that is because light reflects off of each other. So if this is water or some sort of deep blue sky, and you have these white flowers here, chances are that blue would be reflecting on the flower petals. It wouldn't be pure white. You'd be seeing some of that light being reflected, and so you would see sort of a blue hue to it. So that's why it's important to kind of, to make your painting really cohesive and to make it nice and balanced, you want to make sure to include those colors in more than one place. So I'm getting a little bit more aqua, and I'm going to go back in here and there with a random petal on my flowers.
So Jessie, if you wanted to change up the background of this painting and maybe make it with some beautiful pinks and reds, would you do that same kind of technique, incorporating some of those hues into the white?
Right. If you had a different color background, that's a great question. I would recommend using whatever your background colors are and just putting a little bit of that into your white flowers. And again, that's just going to make it look more realistic because that's how the light would really be hitting it in nature. You would definitely be seeing those reds or pinks or whatever color your background is being reflected. So I'm making my flowers a little bit bigger. I'm adding some more petals. And again, these are a really loose way to paint these flowers. Okay, so I'm going to wipe my brush off again. I'm not rinsing it. And I'm going to pick up a little bit of my lime green, which is this really fun bright green color. Put a little of that on my palette. We're going to do the same thing with this color. And the reason we're adding some of this green is because we're going to use it later for our leaves. So this is just kind of assuming that maybe some of the leaf color is going to be reflected on our white flowers as well. White, of course, wants to just reflect all the colors around it. So you want to make sure that you include some of the other colors from your painting whenever you're painting with white. So I've got some of this nice green tinted white. And of course our flowers are still going to look white when we're done. You don't want to add so much of the other colors that it looks like green flowers or it looks like blue flowers. You just want enough so that it really balances your painting out. And if you feel like you're getting a little too much color, you can just go back with some of the pure white and kind of just brighten it right back up. If you feel like, oh, my flowers are getting kind of blue, we don't want them to look like blue flowers, so you can go back, like I said, with just plain wicker white and just kind of brighten some of that back up. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to rinse my brush off. Dokie. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead, now that we have all of our flowers, I keep getting water on my painting. Now that we have all of our flowers laid out, we're going to go ahead and we're going to put our stems in there. So a lot of times people will paint the stems first and then put the flowers, but I wanted the stems to feel very loose and sort of wild looking. So I put my flowers where I wanted them. We're kind of just going to paint the stems in between. So I'm going to grab some of my white. I have the same brush. I have my #1 flat brush. I'm sorry, my 1/2 inch flat brush. I'm going to mix some of my white with a little bit of my lime green. And it's going to be definitely brighter than we did this little tinted white here. But we definitely don't want it to be quite so bright as that green there, as the original lime green. We just want to soften it a little bit because it's a really bright color. Okay, so we have this nice bright green. So we are ever so loosely going to paint our stems in with the chiseled edge of our brush. So we're not going to go flat and paint our stems down like that. We're going to put it on its side. And you want to hold your brush perpendicular to your canvas. So you see how I'm doing it there? I'm not going to paint it, parallel. I'm going to be perpendicular, and I'm going to go up and down. And I'm just going to kind of very loosely, I'm not going to put any pressure on my brush. It's going to be really light. I'm just going to kind of drag from the flower down to the bottom of the painting to create the stem. So I'll show you what I mean. I'm barely going to touch my canvas, just really loosely. I'm not putting any pressure. I'm just really directing where the brush goes and doing a stem there really lightly. And I'm going to do another one over here. Super loose, very wild looking. And now I'm going to wipe off my brush, and I want to have a little bit of variety in my stem colors. So I'm going to pick up some of my white and a little bit of my aqua, and I still have some of that pretty lime green in my brush. This stem is just going to be a little bit cooler. So now I'm going to do the stem here. And again, I'm not putting any pressure on my brush. I'm just dragging it. I'm just directing where the brush goes. It's just touching my canvas. And I'll do it behind this flower, and then I'll make sure he gets connected there. Okay, so I like that. That looks good. And don't forget, we're going to be adding in all of these extra leaves and a couple of extra little white flowers, so that'll help fill our space. So I'm going to start by blocking in some of my leaf shapes. So what I mean by blocking is I'm not going to, outline the leaves and fill them in, and I'm not going to do a lot of blending. I'm just going to really use my brush to create a couple of swift movements to place my leaves, kind of similar to how we just painted our flowers. So I'll show you what I mean by that. We're going to be kind of classic leaf shapes, so we're going to do them a little differently than you might think. So I'm going to paint this leaf right here. I'm going to paint it, of course, in the same spot. So I'm going to start where I want my leaf top to be. I'll tilt it so you can see, and I'm just going to block it. I'm going to pick up a little more paint, and that's going to be my leaf shape. So it's really blocky, and then I am going to fill it in. Just one quick swipe. And you can see here I have some of my canvas showing through, and I really like that. I like the looseness of it, and I like that you can see some of that blue coming through. So again, I'm going to do that a few more times wherever you want your leaves to be. So I'm going to do the larger leaves first. Add a little bit more paint to my mixture here. It's drying out just a little bit. So I have this like pretty minty color now. So I'm going to add one here. And then maybe one up here. You can see they're really square-like. They're almost, geometrical. One there. And then I'll add a big one here. Okay, so now I'm going to go back. I'm going to pick up a little bit of my aqua on my brush. I haven't washed my brush or even wiped it off. It's the same paint. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to add a stroke of this towards the bottom. And that's going to kind of act as like a shadow of sorts on these, just to give it maybe a little bit more of dimension. So just a little bit darker color. I'm going to go back right along the bottom of these and give it just another color to create some more, to kind of imply dimension. Okay, so I really like the way that's looking. So I'm going to add a little more aqua to this. I'm just you can see I'm just really getting different variations of the colors I already have on my palette, because I want it to have a lot of different varieties of these colors on my painting. So I just darkened that a little bit with some more aqua, and I'm going to add some details to the bottom of our flower. So you can see here just a little bit more details, just to really make the, they kind of look separate now. They look like they're kind of just floating on top of the stems, and I really want them to look like they're attached. So I'm just going to add a little bit of detail, kind of cupping, you see what I just did with my brush there? Kind of cupping the flower and attaching it to the stem. So I'll show you what I did. I'm just kind of pressing my brush down really loosely and just sort of creating that little piece of the flower that makes it look like it's all one. I'll do that for each of my flowers. How's everyone doing, Em? Any more questions?
No, not right now. We have a lot of people watching.
Awesome. So you can see now they all kind of look like one. They don't look so much like they're just floating on these random, strings in our painting. They look like they're complete flowers. Okay. So now I'm going to start adding some more of my, some more different colors of green for more leaves. We're going to do some smaller leaves now. We kind of have these pretty large, lighter colored leaves, and we're going to do some of this brighter green leaves a little bit tinier in our painting. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to rinse my brush off. We're going to switch to a slightly smaller brush. Okay, so I'm going to grab my smaller brush. So this is a number 8 flat, just a tiny little flat. And I'm going to pick up some of my lime green, and I'm going to grab a little bit of white. So it's kind of going to be similar to this color we did on here when we were doing our stems. So I've got my lime green and white. And I'm going to do the same thing I did before, but much smaller. So I'm just going to do here and there, kind of to fill in some of the empty spaces. So these little blocky leaves, just in this really pretty bright green color.
So Jess, we have a few questions.
Okay.
Kathy wants to know, if you painted the background a different color, would you change the leaf color too?
You totally could if you wanted to. This one really doesn't have, a whole lot to do with the background color, this green. But if if you're using like a paler color and you wanted to use a softer green, by all means you could do that. Or if you're going with a darker color palette, it's totally up to you.
Okay.
If there was another color you felt like it would contrast better, you can totally change any of the colors in this painting if you want to.
All right, cool. And another question, Lisa wants to know, is that acrylic paint? Yes, Lisa, tonight Jessie is painting with Folk Art acrylic paint. And do you want to tell them about the Let's Paint kit, Jess?
I'd love to. So like Emma said, this is our favorite paint to paint with. This is our Folk Art acrylic paint. It's really awesome. It's got amazing coverage. You can see it's really thick and creamy. And the kit I'm using tonight, we've put together 24 colors, which are awesome. So if you're here, you know about our Let's Paint Live classes. We do this once a month. We've been doing it for a few years now, so we have dozens of classes on our YouTube channel. And all of our paintings can be painted with this kit. So if you want to go to plaidonline.com, it's also on walmart.com and Amazon. It's the Let's Paint Live kit, and it comes with 24 colors that we have hand-picked, so you can paint any of these paintings with it. It's really got all of the colors you would possibly need for canvas painting. So it comes with a great pack of brushes, our 10-piece variety set, and 24 different beautiful colors of Folk Art acrylic paint. So make sure to check that out. And like I said, make sure to check out the rest of our library of painting classes on our YouTube channel. Make sure to subscribe and like our paintings. We've got a whole playlist of all of the classes in our Let's Paint Live series. So make sure to check that out too. Okay, so I'm just continuing with my green leaves here. You can kind of go back. I'm just going back and brightening them up a little bit here and there with the same color. They've just dried a touch, so I'm going back right back over them. Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to go back and I'm going to add a little bit more to those leaves as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some more of my lime green. And I'm going to mix that with wicker white, but I'm going to add a little more white than last time because I want it to be a little bit paler. So we had this like just a little bit, less bright of a green, and now we want to make it sort of a little more like pastel-ish. Like a spearmint color. Okay. So I'm going to go back over and I'm just going to add a stroke here and there to these leaves. You can kind of, use this as like a highlight color almost. Oops. Just to give, again, some more variety and detail to these leaves. And again, you can see I'm being super loose with this. I'm not doing a lot of, special blending, and I'm not being really careful about where I place my brush strokes. This is just one of those really loose, quick paintings. You have to be really just not think too hard, just be, you want to be intentional with your brush strokes, but you don't want to overthink it because that's just where you can kind of just work it and work it and work it to death. You want it to be nice and loose and light looking. So you can see I've already added that light green super quick to my leaves. I'm going to wipe off my brush. And I'm going to mix a little bit of my lime green with my aqua. So about 1 part lime green, 1 part aqua to get a really pretty green color, like a beautiful bright green color. And I'm going to add some of this color to my leaves as well. So you can kind of, focus towards the bottom. And again, we're kind of just creating like a little bit of really quick and loose dimension sort of. Have like a sort of something of a highlight and something of a shadow just to make it look like it's not flat.
And just as a reminder too to everyone watching, we listed a link to where you can get your very own Let's Paint Live kit to paint along with Jessie and Kirsten and Andy and whoever else does Let's Paint to the caption of this video. So go ahead and check that out.
Awesome, thanks, Em. Okay, so I'm going to keep this color, this bright green leaf mix, and I'm going to add a little bit of that to my bigger leaves that we did earlier too. And again, this is just kind of unifying it even more. The more you kind of spread these colors out and use them in different places, the more unified your painting will look. So kind of just touching that here and there. So I have all these really pretty colors throughout my painting. Okay. So now I love the way this is looking. but I do want it to be a little bit fuller. It's just looking like a few flowers just sort of growing, and I want it to look like a really full flower patch, like a garden or something like that. So I'm going to add a few more stems here and there and a couple of little white buds in different places. So I've got my same brush. I still have my number 8 flat brush. I'm going to pick up some of this nice mint color we made earlier. It's a little dry, so we're going to mix some more. And I'm going to grab my wicker white and some aqua and mix those together. Get this nice minty blue color. I'm going to wipe off that extra paint. Whenever I try to make sure to have good habits, whenever I mix with my paintbrush, I always want to make sure to rinse it off. I don't want to paint with all of that paint on my brush.
And why is that, Jess?
It just makes it harder. You always want to have control over the paint that is going onto your canvas. If your brush gets really moppy and full with paint, you don't have very good control over the way that it's being applied to your canvas. It changes the shape of your bristles, and it's just not as easy to make your brush strokes intentional. So now I've got my brush back to being fresh. I'm going to pick up some of the paint, and I'm going to do a few random stems here and there, just the same way we did before, really lightly, just to kind of fill in some of these spaces. So I'm going to start with doing one here, and you can see I'm holding my brush. This is important. I'm holding my brush at the back. I'm not holding it here how you might normally, like you would hold a pencil. I'm holding it at the very back, and this is going to make my brush stroke super loose because I have no choice. I can't grip it tight and kind of control where it's going. I'm just going to kind of let it flow in my hand, and I'm just going to sort of drag my brush across the canvas to get a really loose line. So I'll show you. I'm going to start at the bottom, and I'm going to drag it up this way. You can see how you get that really beautiful loose line by doing that. I'm going to do another one up here. Just a really nice, full area.
I think the perfectionists watching might be a little worried about this step.
Yep. You just kind of have to let it go. That's all the only advice I can give you. I'm definitely a perfectionist myself, but when I'm painting this way, I really have to be conscious and just sort of let it go and just let it be what it's going to be. That's when you get some of the most beautiful and interesting paintings. Okay. So now I'm going to, I like how I've filled in that in a little bit more. Excuse me. So I'm going to rinse my brush off. And I'm going to put a little more wicker white on my palette because I've really gotten it covered in other colors. I want to have some fresh wicker white. And I'm going to grab my number 6 round brush. This is just a small round brush. It's kind of like a liner brush. If you have that, that'll work too. And I'm going to pick up some of my wicker white, and I'm going to create these little flower buds here. So just little bundles of these white, just little areas of color. Oops, I got some aqua on there. So I just want white. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to do a little grouping, and I'm just going to go dab, 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 dab for each one. So I'm going to dab here, some white, and then I'm going to do a couple more around that. Just little bundles. Do a couple up here of little flower buds. And again, I'm just really wanting to fill the space in. I want it to look really full. You can do them here and there, wherever you feel like you've got maybe a gap that needs to be filled. And I'm always trying to be conscious that I don't want my painting to be too symmetrical or too perfect looking, because of course flowers don't grow just all next to each other like little soldiers. They're going to be, especially if you're trying to paint, like wildflower or something like that, they're going to be kind of random. They're going to be really loose. They're going to be different heights, going in different directions, different shapes. So just something to keep in mind when you're trying to paint a loose floral painting like this. Okay, so I'm happy with that. So I'm going to go ahead and rinse my brush off. And I'm going to go for this minty green we mixed here earlier. So I'm going to grab some of my aqua and a touch of my lime green and some wicker white. I'm going to mix those together. I'm going to wipe my brush off, and I'm going to rinse it to make sure I don't have all that extra paint on it. And we're going to create some greenery in between our buds so they don't look like they're floating. So I'm going to create some leaves just by pressing my brush down in between my buds. Kind of just cradling each one of these to make them look like full flowers, like they're attached. And kind of attach them, and I want to make sure that they're kind of going on one of these stems here. We'll make a little stem there to make sure that looks like it's not just floating. Okay, so he's kind of floating, so I do want to make one more stem kind of coming from these guys. Okay. All right, guys. Let's go ahead and rinse my brush off. So we're coming up on the final detail of our painting, and that is to add, we're going to kind of go back, sort of coming full circle. We started with our flowers. Now we're going to go back and we're going to add the final detail of our flowers. So I'm going to grab some of my daffodil yellow. And I still have my number 6 round brush. Pick up some of my yellow, and I'm going to do some dabbing in the center of each flower to brighten it up and give it sort of that little pollen, or those, what are they called in the middle, Emma?
Stamen.
The stamen of the flower. So I'm going to do a little bit of dabbing in the center. And don't forget, you don't want to necessarily do it at the top because that's not the center of the flower. We did that petal in the back to sort of be the back petal of the flower, and then these petals are coming in the front. So the center of the flower will be between those. So keep that in mind when you're doing your dabbing. You don't want to do it at the top because that's going to be sort of, that would be kind of behind the flower.
And Jess, Sandy has a question. Would it be
Sure.
a good idea once the paint is dry to spray finish this with a spray sealer?
Oh, totally. You absolutely can. The great thing about folk art is it's really durable, so you don't have to seal it. But if you did want to seal it, we make some amazing painting sealers. So Mod Podge, if you guys are familiar, we make Mod Podge as well. We have some great aerosol sprays, so those are awesome for sealing your paintings. So you've got a matte one and a gloss one and a satin one, lots of different versions depending on how you want your painting to be. But probably my favorite thing to seal my paintings with is Mod Podge Ultra. And that is a water-based sealer. It's actually a glue and sealer. It does lots of amazing things. We have lots of videos on our Facebook page using Mod Podge Ultra.
It dries non-tacky.
Yeah, so if you're interested in that, make sure to check it out. It dries non-tacky, and it is super duper durable. It's easy to use, it's water-based, you can use it right inside, it's totally safe, you don't have to use it in a well-ventilated area, but it is still a spray. So you just spritz it on your canvas, it goes on super evenly, and it will protect your canvas so, so well. So Mod Podge Ultra is my favorite. So again, I'm just continuing. My yellow. And since I'm adding yellow, if you'll notice, we don't have it anywhere else in our painting, and I said earlier we want to make sure that we do. So maybe add a couple of little yellow dots into your little buds. You could add some yellow onto some of your leaves. You just want to make sure that you include yellow elsewhere in the painting.
And you know, Jess, of course, every painting is going to be different. And I think I might like this painting that you're working on now more than the original.
Well, there you go. Yep. It's really, really hard. Me and Andy were talking about this not too long ago, me and Andy Jones, how it's so difficult to paint the exact same painting twice. It's nearly impossible. It is possible, of course, but you know, you'll never get that same. The first one is sometimes just always the best. If you like something about your painting, it's sometimes really hard to recapture it. So don't, beat yourself up. If you don't like the first one, paint it again, and I bet you'll find that you like it more, or at least differently. It's really hard to paint the same painting twice. But we try. Okay, so now I'm going to include a little bit. I'm going to pick up some of this light green we have here, and I'm going to put a little bit of that into the center of our flowers as well by the yellow. And again, it's just more balance. We have more of that green in there being reflected. Okay, so the last step of any painting is to sign it. So make sure to sign your painting. I like to just use a nice sharp liner brush or a small round brush. And I like to sign it in the bottom right. Just use the very tip. And that is it for our white water lilies. So thank you so much for painting with me, guys. Again, this has been so much fun. I love doing these Let's Paint Lives. It's one of my favorite days of the month. So we are back the next month in August. I can't believe it's the 1st of July. So next month is August already. We'll be back the first Thursday of August with a brand new painting. And I will debut that for you now. It is going to be called Modern Lotus. So it's a really fun one. It's super bright and it's super modern. It's a really fun technique that I haven't done before on Let's Paint Live. So make sure to check this out. The event listing will be posted sometime tonight or tomorrow. So make sure to check that out. Go ahead and click that you're attending so you will be reminded of it next month. But again, the first Thursday of August, we will see you for Modern Lotus, and we'll see you then.